This one is going to be a doozy, and harsh truths will be told. Leave now if you still have any residue of mammy flowing through your veins. Hello, neighbors. Here we like to discuss astrology, spirituality, and using it to increase productivity and decrease distractions to manifest our best life. However, my spirit has been really pushing me to open the Pandora's box on this particular issue. Now, I feel like I've seen too many times women will broach the topic, but they skirt around the raw truth in fear of backlash. Well, I ain't afraid of that ish. So let's get into the real reason why men hate single mothers. Whether you're a spiritual woman or not, entering into motherhood is one of the highest elevations of spirituality. In different cultures around the world, motherhood is often symbolized by the moon or the ocean. When we look at astrology, we can look to all the water signs to define the basic essence of motherhood. For instance, Cancer, which is the first of the water sign, represents pregnancy, nourishment, nurture, protection. Then we go to the second water sign, Scorpio, and this represents a deep, unbreakable bond, the safest attachment, knowing a being so deeply before they truly know themselves. Then lastly, we get to Pisces, which represents oneness, unconditional love, the purest interconnectedness one can feel with another, compassion and empathy that is not contingent on receiving anything back. Now we can see when we're looking at the water element as a whole, you're going to see how that symbolizes the essence, the overall essence of motherhood. Another example is the Yoruba religion, Yamaha, an African Orisha, which is the mother of all Orishas, the mother of all mothers. Yamaha controls the sea and is associated with the moon. She is a life creator, life giver, ruler of all living things, a nurturing nourisher that fiercely protects those under her care. When a woman enters motherhood, they are thrusted into a spiritual elevation of extreme heights, a spiritual elevation of oneness. It's one of the highest forms of spirituality that one gets ushered into. When a woman has become pregnant, she is instantly ushered into spiritual oneness with another being. There is a biological superiority that a woman's body has, and it is to create, nurture, and nourish. While the male body is built to conquer, destroy, protect, and overpower. Without the woman's body, humans will cease to exist. Life would cease to exist. This is something men fully understand, but at the same time highly resent, because this is a power they cannot siphon for themselves. But that doesn't stop them from trying, and we'll discuss that later. Even in a patriarchal society, man recognizes motherhood as the ultimate power. They refer to our land of existence as Mother Earth. They refer to our most richest location of resources as Mother Africa. They refer to the changes and nourishment of the earth as Mother Nature. They have a full understanding of the power women hold in creationism. And because of this, they carry womb envy. Because again, they understand that their existence will cease to exist if women decide not to use their power of motherhood. There's a Yoruba saying, Iyani wara, baba ni digi, which means mother is gold, father is a mirror. Simplified, the mother is strong, of high value, and at the core to the child's very existence. A man is granted the first decision to have a child. However, after that first decision, it is the woman's body that has to give the stamp of approval to whether the child will exist or not. Now let's discuss spiritual oneness a little bit deeper. A mother automatically becomes one with her creation. Through the womb, they share the same emotions. When the mother is happy, the baby is happy. When the mother is distressed, the baby is distressed. Through the placenta, they share the same nourishment. If the mother eats well, the baby eats well. If the mother does not eat, the baby does not eat. Through microchimerism, the baby and the mothers share the same cells. We already know that cells from the mother transfers to the baby, but did you know that the fetus also sends cells to the mother and it flows through the bloodstream? And while most of the cells may die off due to the mother's immunity system, some of the cells flow right to the mother's organ and lodges there for life. The spiritual and biological oneness between a mother and her creation cannot be duplicated. However, that doesn't mean people don't try. Humans use marriage to become one with their partners, and even if the couple is lucky to have a fruitful marriage filled with love to where they can finish each other's sentence, they will never ever be able to achieve the spiritual oneness bestowed on a mother and child. Men are super aware of this, and it is something that they cannot do with their bodies, which often results in the men envying the relationship between a mother and her child, even if the baby belongs to him. Now, because of the biological superiority, men have tried numerous ways to penalize, condemn, and oppress the woman simply because of her power. They tried to relegate her to only her ability to reproduce, knowing women are much more than that. They have tried to quell her sexual nature in the form of female circumcision, female mutilation, and or female chastity belts. In modern time, that chastity belt is seen in the form of denigration and calling women mothers, 304s in music or comment sections. They try to keep the woman in her place by using their brute force from DV to grape and even worse, femicide. They have tried so many ways to stifle the woman's voice, and an example of this is not giving her the right to vote. They tried to control her financial freedom by preventing her from owning land in her name, from owning a bank account, and so forth. Because of the woman's power of motherhood, they tried to relegate her to only producing more of them. All of this oppression was to limit the wholeness of women. In their mind, it's how dare women have the power of motherhood and the power to do what we do as well. Now let's get into the real issues some men have with single mothers. Now, I put a disclaimer of some men, not because I'm afraid of fragile male backlash, but because I know for a fact that a lot of men don't have an issue with single mothers, but it's the whiny wimps that are simply the loudest. So with that said, let's focus on the wimps and talk about the things that are in our minds that some women are too afraid to vocalize. Number 1, bitter baby daddies.
What do you think happened? Mr. Jackson business. You did think so?
Yes, I know so.
Why do you say that?
He threatened me on Monday.
He did.
He threatened me. Look, watch what I'll do. I'll have someone come kill you. He threatened me. He threatened me on Monday, and this is what he did.
How long were you two together?
We were together for 13 years. The relation just ended over a year ago. He cannot accept that I have moved on with my life, and he felt like he was going to strip me of everything. And I didn't allow it. I fought back, and this is what he's trying to do. He tried to kill me and his own child.
Why do you know that?
He threatened me. He told me he would. He told me he would have someone come do something to me. He told me, he said, watch what I do. I have someone come kill you, and that's what he did. That's
really
what he did. I know he did. It's not a doubt in my mind or my son's life. I know he did.
What happened?
I know he did.
Anything? Did you see anything?
Someone threw something through the window and the house just ignited. Couldn't even make it downstairs. We had to jump out the window.
Do you think he hired someone to do it?
Yes, of course. I know he's too much of a coward to do anything himself.
You're
blaming 50 Cent for this?
Yes.
He released a statement saying he was happy everyone got out alive.
He didn't even, if you release a statement, if you care about the child, he has made no attempt to contact his child. He calls my grandmother when he's upset and he wants to talk about me. He calls my uncle, he calls my aunt. He's not made one attempt to come find out if his son is okay. So that sound like a concerned father? A concerned father don't sign over their rights. A concerned father do not sign over legal, physical. He has no rights over Marquise. None. He signed away custody. He tries to make it like he's a doting, beautiful father. He's not.
So you don't think he cares about you?
He is a deadbeat because it's not about monetary. He is a deadbeat.
You heard this in the middle of the night?
Yes, I did.
Talk about the custody of the house. He didn't want you to have that.
No,
house.
and we was in the Supreme Court. I did my deposition yesterday.
And yesterday. Did he trash
yesterday.
the attorney's
yes.
office?
No, he trashed me on Monday, but I did my deposition yesterday, and they saw the evidence that I had. We had an express oral agreement, and I have proof that he said that, and this is what happened. He knew I was going to get that house.
He
He doesn't care. Anyone who's trying to take a roof over their child's head, do they care about putting them in danger? When you know you drive around a bulletproof van all day, every night, wouldn't you want your son to be somewhere safe?
You think he would try to kill his own kid?
Yes, I think he would. He's obsessed. If he can't have me, he'd be like, no one can. He's obsessed.
So
he's very obsessed.
Now, these men are loud as hell about their disdain for single mothers while being a single mother creator themselves. Bitter baby daddies have children simply for bragging rights, just to say that they have children. These men are typically mentally stunted in growth and define manhood not by fatherhood and how he takes care of his responsibilities, but on how many kids he can create. Now, here's the thing. These men share a certain pathology. They intentionally will get a woman pregnant thinking they have a person that they can control because he believes she is now tied to him for life. He believes he can do whatever to her and he will still have access to her simply because they share a child. However, what he didn't count on, that oftentimes the love a mother has for her child will surpass any kind of love she has for him, if there was even love in the first place. Once the mother focuses her attention on the baby and not him, he begins to feel his control decline. Even worse, if the mother decides to cut him loose, this is when he'll go on his smear campaign because, of course, if he can't have her, nobody can. This type will be the loudest about devaluing single mothers simply because he doesn't want men to have access to his child's mother. We see these types all the time on Kendra G's channel, for example. They have a whole foster care system of kids, but they're looking to date women with no kids. They have no control in real life, so they seek to gain control over a woman through her womb. And when that doesn't work, here they go screeching like a whiny bee on their soapbox, whining about how Russell Wilson is a simp for marrying Sierra.
Emmett, if you listen to me, I promise you, I will make sure you have enough money to keep all your women very, very happy.
I only got one.
You have 4. The mothers of your children, they will always be your women.
Okay, so we're gonna go on to the next type, number 2, the bitter baby daddy to be. These ones don't have children, but they like the idea and toxic notion that if they should have a child with a woman, that will be a woman he has permanent access to. Now that he's seeing that women are finding peace and prosperity, removing toxic baby daddies from their motherhood journey, he is becoming enraged that his future prospects are being removed before he can create a fatherless child. So he joins in with the bitter baby daddies on his protest against single mothers. Now, the third reason why men hate single mothers are because single mothers have higher standards. Women today, whether with child or not, have increased their standards. They have demonstrated that they can operate in both their feminine and masculine energy and get big things done, and they expect the same from their partners. Today, we are finally seeing women decenter men, decenter marriage, and even are choosing to be child-free. This is completely limiting the manipulative tactics men have used to coerce women into partnership. But the single mother is doing all that and more. The single mother, and I'm talking about the mother that truly loves their child, will automatically increase her dating standards once a child is in the picture. There are certain men that she may have engaged with when it was just her, but now that she has a child or children, she wouldn't dare date them or look twice at them. She understands that people she chooses as part of her village will either leave a positive impact or a negative impact, so she chooses wisely. And even if she engages with the wrong type, she will be quicker to cut him off because children are involved, and her main role now is to be the carer, nurturer, nourisher, and provider for her children. Men hate this ish. The fact that he is not her center, the fact that she chose another being over him, enrages him and creates an uncontrollable jealousy. We see this all the time. A woman leaves a man that positioned himself as something special, and he forgets to wear his mask one day, and she bounces. He will then retaliate with narcissistic attacks. And if that doesn't work, he will unfortunately contribute to the femicide and even infanticide rate. These ones have dated and been rejected by single mothers, and now they have a vendetta against them. Reason number 4 why men hate single mothers. Father absent victim. This person had an ain't nothing father. Unfortunately, he was given a father that wanted to create children without the responsibility of raising it. The father had Peter Pan syndrome, probably never wanted to grow up, or even worse, impregnated his mom and rained down a whole bunch of abuse stemming from financial abuse, emotional or mental abuse, triangulation, physical abuse, and much more. When the mother finally had enough and got the strength to leave and safeguard her and her children, the son resented the mother for leaving. He could not perceive the dangers they were in, even as he grew into adulthood and had his whole prefrontal lobe developed. He believed his mother should have accepted all the BS and stayed with his daddy. And because the dad is absent, he delusionally pictured him to be exceptional. You know the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, that's what happens with these types. Their daddy is missing in action, and as much as the daddy didn't want anything to do with the child, he sees his dad as a hero. And for every hero, there's a villain. You see, with these types, it doesn't matter how much the mother pours into them. They build up resentment from the father being absent, and because daddy is not around, they automatically take out their rage to the closest person to them, mom. Now, his mom, in his eyes, is representative of all solo moms. And all that trauma his absent father bestowed on him is unleashed on his mother and other solo moms. The parent that stayed involved and are doing what they need to do for their kids is the target of misdirected anger. Lastly, but not least, number 5, the incels. This one is a special bunch. They are constantly mourning what they desire and they believe they cannot have. They desire companionship. They desire love. They desire a family. They desire a sense of belonging. But they either lack the social skills, confidence, or accomplishments to attract their desires. Instead of working on themselves, they target and spew their vitriol to single mothers. Now, when we see a mother, there is a few snap judgments we make. We assume she has attracted a mate at one point or the other to create a child. Of course, there are extenuating exceptions such as grape, but we don't automatically think that. We know she has love because we are all aware of that pure, unconditional love that a child brings, especially in their younger years. We know she has a family because regardless if there is a male present or not, that child will always and forever be her family. We know that she will never be bored or without company in her home because children don't leave room for boredom and they bring color, love, and light to environments. Now, incels see all this and instantly is reminded of all the things he doesn't have, and this enrages the hell out of him. How dare a single mother get to experience the joys of life without a male facilitating that joy? They don't see when the mother is tired or all the work she does to make sure she pours into her children. They only see what they desire. And this creates a dangerous mix of jealousy, resentment, and hatred. Let me share a quick little story. I had a friend. Well, I wouldn't call him a friend per se, but a guy that I knew that was comfortable sharing tidbits about himself. Let's carry on. This dude was so social and had great aspiration with regards to career and eventually creating his own family. He always talked about how he couldn't wait to have a wife so he can create babies. So fast forward to years later, I seen him at the Tim Hortons, which is a donut shop, with a woman, beautiful girl with sister locks. So we exchanged niceties and I left with the dude I was with. He ended up calling me later that week to catch up. And he downloaded me on his new girl, telling me she's the one, and he was overall happy with his life. Fast forward a few years. We ended up chatting and he tells me he and the love of his life split. How they try to have a baby before marriage, how his little baby makers weren't marching the way it should be, and so forth. Now let's fast forward to a year after that. Here's the same dude that couldn't wait to have a family, that loved kids, that was ready to create an unwed mother before finding out his little swimmers couldn't swim. That same dude was on some F them kids type ish. Not for real. Everything was about how annoying kids are, how he's going to stop dating single mothers. He was obsessed with ragging on kids. The only exception was his nephew and nieces. But to be honest, if I was his siblings, I would be scared to leave my kid alone with him because his disdain for kids were loud. It was crazy how everything he loved now turned to everything he hated simply because it wasn't within his reach. I hope you're seeing the pattern here. The hatred is not really about single mothers. It's about the envy of women entering into their power of motherhood unfacilitated by men, uncontrolled by men. Now, I see some men spit fire and vitriol when single motherhood becomes a topic, and I see women playing the game and responding to what is being said, but not responding to why it's being said. The back and forth on this matter is very contrived, but men want it this way. They only want to keep the conversation surface level because addressing the real reason will expose them as the jelly beans they are. Think about it. How can single motherhood be demonized while father absence isn't? How can the person who stayed to assume responsibility be the demon while the person that scapegoated their responsibility be the angel? Single mothers were never the issue, but the reverence of motherhood is. It is one thing a man cannot duplicate. Men want to be wanted by women, regardless if they were desirable or not. And for the longest time, society, laws, and guidelines facilitated it. Women were kept under the control of men, forced into unions with them due to patriarchal systems. Women were told they can't do anything without men, that men were better and more powerful. But the truth is, men can't do anything without women. They can't even exist. Men cannot walk this earth without a woman deciding that they are fit to. Women's bodies are biologically superior and is the final deciding force in creationism. No matter how politically correct society wants to become, that spiritual power, motherhood, will always belong to the woman. And because of that, men will attack it, especially if they feel they are losing control of it. It's easier to attack what they cannot have. The type of attacks changes over the history, but the battle remains consistent. Men are losing the hold they had on motherhood. So what do? They create laws, use brute force, and will shame mothers for the power. Most of the men are projecting their inferiority and insecurity, and they are losing more control as we progress. With that said, whether you're a single mother, a married mother, or a child-free or childless woman, if you have a male in your circle that constantly disparages single mothers, realize the hatred has less to do with the single mother's status, but more so his overall contempt of women and the magic they can create with their wombs. Very few of these men will come clean about that real root of their inferiority. These types use excuses like, oh, I want to start my own family, or I don't want to spend my money on another man's kids. Granted, these are the same men that don't spend money on their own kids. Let me continue. Another excuse will be, I don't want to put emotional labor into another man's child. Again, these are the same types that don't give emotional labor to their own children. Hello, look at the rise of married single mothers. It's like they're reading from the same playbook. So why do you think they all have these contrived, recycled answers? It's because they are trying to conceal the real reason, because they know that the real reason will expose their inferiority and insecurity. The real reason will highlight how fragile the male ego is. The stifling of a woman's wholeness has been done forever. What I'm speaking is nothing new. But this one is especially for the single mother. You have demonstrated the ability to work within your feminine and masculine energy, and you dare to do that without the presence of a male. You're still doing it, and you never suffered in the way they hoped you will. It is important for you to distance yourself from these types immediately, and for sure keep them away from your children. Listen to what they say and take it seriously. If you decide to date and they show even a pink flag about single mothers, but say nothing about absent fathers, run. Run for the sake of you and your children. We are living in a great time. We have social media that has emboldened males to spew their hatred and inferiorities. Use that as an elimination tool when mingling with males. Another disclaimer, I don't want this message or warning to be misconstrued. I greatly believe in the concept of family in terms of a woman and man coming together to contribute to the well-being and upbringing of a child. But what I don't believe in is the concept of family at all costs. Meaning, if one or both parents are contributing toxicity to the environment where motherhood is being incubated, and having their child see that toxicity day in and day out for years upon years upon years, and eventually instilling this toxic dynamic into the child to where this child becomes an adult and spews the toxicity that they have normalized onto everyone they come in contact with, that's no bueno. I believe that it's the mother's primary duty to remove herself and the child from any toxicity. Whether the male views toxic behavior in her or the male is toxic themselves, part of motherhood is recognizing what is best for the child and removing the child from environments that is detrimental to their development. It is her responsibility to ensure that her child has the opportunity to be in an environment where they have every chance of thriving normally. Now, the most profound part of these males' smear campaign is to create a world outside of him that is so toxic that you will be forced to select the lesser evil. Men want you to accept their toxicity so you won't go out in the world to deal with the male-created stigma. Let me elaborate. There are mothers that only stay with the toxic father in fear of being shamed by others about being a single mother. Men want the verbal castration of single mothers to be so thick, so overwhelming, that mothers that are in really toxic situations would rather stay with the man because they're more afraid of the male-made stigma. So essentially, they are shamed to stay. It's a twisted little game they play. Don't let their inferiority interrupt the magic of motherhood, no matter how hard they whine, no matter how hard they try. Do not cut your blessings, abundance, and prosperity the universe has for you and your children by engaging with these types. Motherhood is one of the highest forms of spirituality, so keep elevating while these types stew in their own ways of self-pity, inferiority, and rejection. The universe provides unique spiritual blessings to those that have entered into motherhood. There is this renowned strength that courses through a mother's vein, knowing that she has to not only show up for herself, but for her kids. Motherhood is hard no matter how it's done, but one thing that makes it all worth it is the unconditional, pure love your children have for you. That love is uncut and unmatched. Males can't compete with that kind of love. There's a pure and innocent joy that children have that rubs off on a mother in the rarest of times. This allows mothers to take a moment in time to give herself grace. She learns grace through motherhood. Self-development is a $13.2 billion industry that takes years to master. When a woman is thrusted into motherhood, there are some key skills that naturally start to develop without reading a book, attending a seminar, or taking a 10K course. Those skills include maturation and responsibility, unconditional love, advocacy and protection, to nurture, to understand without being communicated to, Donkey Kong strength, that's just the bare minimum. Motherhood is hard because you're expected to have all the answers and mother perfectly. But the reality is that mothers learn on the job. But as much as it's one of the hardest jobs in the world, mothers really do experience the highest form of love. Some mothers take it for granted or get clouded by what's going on in the world. But if you really take a step back and really look at what the universe has blessed you with, you will know nothing compares. As much as a mother loves its creation, a child loves the mother back in the purest, unexpected ways. They are proud of you just for being their mommy. This is the love a woman should protect, a child's love, and nothing should cloud or dilute the power and purity of motherhood. Not even a dust bucket that projects his fragility to something as magical as motherhood. To bring life, to offer support, and to provide guidance to her creation is the spiritual reverence that women receive during motherhood, and the fact that males don't have entire control over the motherhood journey throws them into a tizzy and is the real reason why they hate single mothers. All right, so we made it to the end of this commentary. Thanks for allowing me to download you on this deep but important discussion. These red pill incels are out of pocket and need to be exposed down to their doodle stained jaws. Anywho, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Share below about experiences you've had with men that have experienced womb envy and their lack of control when it comes to motherhood. Roe. Actually, I ain't even gonna hint. Let's talk about that for a bit. The overturning of Roe versus Wade was a perfect example of men trying to control something that doesn't center them, overturning something that helps them gain access and control to the women. If that isn't an example of some insecure ass shit, it is no wonder we have women that are making deliberate decisions to be child-free. Being linked to males when you have no desire to be can be excruciating. Anyways, that's just gonna start a whole nother conversation and I ain't got time. So for now, I'm signing off. Flow with the energy and take every blessing and opportunity the universe has in store for you. Peace and prosperity to you, and we'll chat soon.